Hi everybody, I wanted to give you a new video and we're talking this week about Boss. Actually, I've got about 3 chapters on Boss and one chapter on Walsh that I wanted to talk about. One of the chapters on Walsh we talked about last week, or I did in my video about my mother's illness when we talked about chronic illness and family caregiving. I do want to touch on that just a little bit real quickly. It's kind of out of order, but talking about how stressful that is. I can't tell you how much stress I've been under lately with working full time and uh, doing this hospital thing and caregiving, and it just is so frustrating these days because the care is just not very good, and I don't know if that's across the board, but at least where she is in this rehab center, and we're getting her moved, but uh, it's terrible, and communication is terrible. So it's causing a lot of stress on the family, and it's just hard. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Also, I wanted to talk about Boss, and she talks about the difference in ambiguity and ambivalence in chapter 6. And what she mentions that the way she perceives ambiguity is when you can't make sense about a loss. Either it's ambiguous because you don't have a body there, but the person's presumed dead, or you have the body there where they, say have Alzheimer's or something like that, and the body's there, but they're not there psychologically. So that's ambiguity. Actually, I saw a couple last night who the dad has moved out of the home. They've been married 17 years, have 2 kids. Uh, Dad moved out of the home, and but the kids don't know, and so they just think he's traveling for business. But it's like kids know. To me, kids have a sense when things are happening, and so uh, to me, it seems like that you would know. I mean, the kids know, and so that's what I said to them, and so they haven't communicated with the kids about this, what's going on, and so there's ambiguity because dad's their dad, but where is dad? And he's not in the house, but they're still married. And then ambivalence is well, back to that couple that I saw, they're ambiguous. I mean, ambivalent about what they want to do in their marriage. Do we want to stay together? Do we want to split up? And so there's that really leads to a lot of stress because um, you're back and forth and in and out, and so the not knowing, the wife not knowing, and then the husband also feeling stressful because he doesn't know and he thinks he should know, and so that's a hard place, tough place for them to be in. Um, so, but again, back to the ambiguity, we've talked about that quite a bit. Ambiguous loss, where somebody, the physical absence, where somebody's lost in war, like a downed plane or something like that. Psychologically present, they're still emotionally there in the family, and the family's having a hard time letting go. And then, like I've mentioned before, Alzheimer's physically. Y'all are really going to know this well before this semester's over. Alzheimer's, physical presence, and psychological absence. That's not just Alzheimer's. That could be things like if somebody's just checked out, if somebody's depressed or somebody's an alcoholic or something, where they're there in body, but they're checked out emotionally and a lot of times mentally too. So those can be very stressful situations on the people who are there wanting their loved one to be there 100%. Then she talks in chapter 7 about denial, and denial, the subtitle is barrier or buffer. Denial is a coping mechanism that a lot of people use that is their salvation sometimes. Let's say a lot of times Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about the stages of grief, and when you lose a family member, especially when it's something um, sudden, a sudden death, the first stage almost always is denial that this can't be real, this can't be happening. And so, but it's almost like a natural instinct for us to go into that because if we went straight into the grieving process, it would be really, really hard. And so I was talking to one of my students at Capella. She lost her husband last week. It was sudden. He had a heart attack, 40 years old. But, I said to her, don't even try to really start doing the grieving process for now, because you've got to, you're going to work through this first, denial. She was in shock and a little bit of denial because she can't believe that it happened. And so that's real normal. And they, the big capital they, say that really grieving can't even start for maybe a year or 18 months after something like that happens. I mean, the grieving process starts because, denial and shock and all that is part of the process. But the real work of dealing with the loss it just takes time. And our bodies go into this shock and denial stage just to help us cope, just to get from one day to the next. So that's very normal, and it's important for us when we work with clients or families to make sure that they know that that's very normal. We hear a lot about that, normalizing situations for people so they don't feel like they're the only ones. But you can have loss of a job or a loss due to illness. But again, she talks, both Walsh and Boss talk a lot about, the importance of communication and education about whatever is going on. When somebody finds out that their loved one has Alzheimer's or, terminal cancer or something, the better educated they are about that, the better, the easier it's going to be for them to deal with it and the less stress that they'll be under. Not that it's not going to be stressful, but education is one of the most important things. And of course, family support and cohesion. Like in my case, I have a lot of family support around my mother, and we're, sticking together a lot, and it's probably drawn us even closer. In chapter 9, Boss talks about external context. Before, she's talked about internal context, where it's the ways that we manage internally, our strengths, our resilience internally. But external context, also internal is your perception, how you perceive a certain event, and then your value system. But external context has to do with history, what's happened in history to get us to this point today that affects our lives. Just for instance, I'm kind of into this women's movement now. Well, I always have been, but a renewed interest. And women are in a very stressful situation in a lot of ways because we do double duty a lot. So we work full time and we care for the home and the kids and all that. And so historically, that we're affected by that because I think it's a good thing that women have equal rights, or we try to have equal rights and equal pay and equal jobs and all that. But what's happened is that it's put a lot of stress on us because in getting equal jobs and things like that, we're not there yet. But then we've doubled up because we're not getting, well, not really doubled, because men have stepped up to also do their part in the home, but it's still statistically not equal. So that's just something historically that has affected us. Economics, absolutely. Look at the world today. Look at our society today and how our economy is so bad. That affects the family. That's an external thing that we have no control over. There's heredity. We have no control over that. How a family hereditarily handles stress is something also that we really don't have control over. We can start changing family patterns, but there's a lot that's happened before now that's going to affect the way that we deal with stress. Of course, our culture, we talked about that, religion, different cultural backgrounds. And there are certain laws in those cultures that dictate how we react to things. And I was watching Rosie on OWN last night. I think it was Rosie, and she had the sister wives family on there with the husband and three of the four wives. And I was thinking about how those cultural um, rules dictate what goes on in that family. And the way they talk, there's a lot of stress that goes on in the family and jealousy among the wives and things like that. So anyway, so that kind of made me think about that with the cultural stuff. In Walsh, in chapter 6, she talks about assessing families. And so when we have a family in our office, we want to talk to them about their strengths and their resilience and things. It's important for us to take into consideration, she talks about perception, their positive attitude, their spirituality, flexibility, how connected they are, social and economic resources. We've talked about that also several times. I think y'all all know that backwards and forwards before this semester is over. And of course, communication. Oh, emotional expression. That's something that this family that I saw, the couple that I saw last night, very not particularly emotionally expressive. And so what happens then is you stuff your feelings, and then it builds up and builds up and builds up, and then when something happens, then I say spew, but explode all over everything, and it's quite often not a very pretty sight. So it's really, really important. I always encourage people that I see in my private practice to feel those emotions and let those emotions out, because that if you hold that in, that's going to add to your stress, and eventually something's going to crack. You're going to get sick or have a heart attack or stroke or something like that, or go off on somebody. So again, like I said, normalizing is very important to this couple that I had last night. The guy was talking about some losses that he had had in his life, and I let him know that it was very normal for him to be feeling the way he did, and to feel ungrounded right now because things, his life his foundation has been rocked, and that's normal. And where do we go from here? So also, Walsh says to instill hope and optimism. So where our families may be struggling to find hope and to stay optimistic, that's where we come in. That's where we can help them, give them, a boost and be a positive force in their life. That we can help them maybe move forward in a positive way and regain some strength that they may have lost in their stressful time. So that's it for today, and y'all take care. I probably will not post anything till after Thanksgiving, because we're all going to be busy next week getting ready for Thanksgiving and traveling and things like that. So I think I fixed it where you didn't really have, maybe you get a little bit of a break, I hope, in the due dates. I'm going to go back and check because I don't want y'all to feel too stressed out. I know you have your interviews due this coming Monday, but I think maybe actually the research papers due the Monday after Thanksgiving, and maybe I did that so you could have time over the Thanksgiving holiday to work on it. I hope so. I may think about that. I don't want to get us too bunched up here toward the end, but I may reevaluate that. But I'll keep you posted. Look for announcements. All right, y'all take care. Bye.